Hey class, so welcome to your microbiology for the health sciences course. This video is meant to serve as just a quick orientation for how to navigate the Blackboard, as well as go over the syllabus and schedule to give you a better understanding of what the actual course is, the requirements, and what to expect for the rest of the semester in terms of workload and how our interactions can sort of be managed to ensure that you do well in the course. So with that said, um, I'm going to share the Blackboard page and you should be able to see the course itself. So hopefully you know how to navigate to the Blackboard and you're able to get to your microbiology course section here in Blackboard. So yeah, this is the student preview, so it should pretty well match what you're able to see on your end here. Um, so you have a syllabus section, a link to the textbook, and I'll speak a little bit about that in a sec. A link that if you click it takes you straight to the Zoom virtual office hours that you can feel free to go to if you have any questions, concerns, what have you. And then the actual assignments and things that we do, like our study guides, labs, and exams, as well as discussion assignments. So with that, I'll navigate to the sort of guiding document here, the syllabus schedule document. So you should be able to open up a Word doc. Let's take a look here. It has a lot of the boilerplate formalities there. So importantly, your section number and synonym number for this course are displayed there, um, as well as my information. So I'm Paul Amador. I've been teaching at ACC for the last 8 years, about primarily face to face, but these last couple of years have been doing a largely online role. So I have some experience specifically with this course. So I feel pretty confident in my ability to navigate you through this online experience successfully for microbiology. I will say I have a strong microbiology background, so it's probably the course that I teach at ACC that I'm most familiar with, that and cell and molecular biology. So if you have any questions as it pertains to the course, or even just out of curiosity about microbiology or molecular biology, um, feel free to email me or approach or use the office hours to ask any sort of question there. It's all part of your tuition. Don't feel like you have to be strictly online. We can interact through that virtual Zoom venue and hopefully address any questions or make sure that you feel confident as you get through the semester here. So I won't bother too much with reading the description and requirements there, since I feel like you probably have a good idea of what to expect here. We're going to be talking about microbial organisms um, with that sort of lens of how they affect humans. Um, Oddly enough, my training and scientific research in microbiology is sort of looking at how microbes can be useful, what benefits we can derive from them. But in this specific course, I'm sort of going the opposite and going not demonizing bacteria, but focusing on how they can impact our health. Primarily, largely uh, through a negative scope, but there are also, they're part of us bacteria, as you'll see as you get through the semester. And they also offer a strong normalizing and beneficial, they're a beneficial part of our physiology and our biology. So I'll also highlight the positives as well as the negatives that we may focus on as we look at antibiotic resistance, all the different diseases that are out there caused by microbes. Now, importantly, um, there are prerequisites for this course. So you should have passed with a minimum of C, either Biology 244, which would be an intro anatomy and physiology, um, Biology 2401 or Biology 2304, your human anatomy or AMP1, or past Biology 1406, which is that cell and molecular biology course, which is pretty similar to like an intro to biology course. So if you have any doubts about if you meet the requirements or not, you feel like maybe you're not prepared for this, just reach out to me. We can make arrangements there. Um, Otherwise, you should have those prerequisites there as you move along with your degree plan here. So I'm going to skip ahead here. Student learning outcomes that you can sort of read on your own time, and we'll highlight that through the course of our interactions via the assignments and these discussion board components to the, I guess, lecture section here as well. Um, Importantly, the last couple of years, I've been using a open source microbiology textbook that, unlike traditional publishing, is updated much more frequently. It's actually through this OpenStax um, website, the service that I think is sponsored by Rice University. And they've got all sorts of free textbooks. We'll be using the one that's called microbiology. So I've included a link here and clicking on it now. And when you go to this link, you should be able to download or view the textbook. One thing that happened just recently is that, and I think since I'm already logged on here, it's not asking for it, but it now requires that you log in to get the free textbook. And that just means you can just use your ACC email. It's still free. It's just some sort of additional measure that I forget exactly why OpenStax started doing this, but it's only been a thing the last like semester really. So if that's not too much of an inconvenience, you just have to provide your an email and make an account. Um, but once you've signed in, then you can always access this book here, which is quite comprehensive. Um, so that'll be the main resource you use for accessing the materials. Um, and I'll talk a little bit more about the how we actually how I guide you through the material and how that relates back to the assignments and the exams. So since this is an all virtual setting, you're not going in to a laboratory and, putting on your gloves and your lab coat. So I was trying to address some of the important, more practical or hands-on components, more applied components of microbiology through this virtual lab setting, which is primarily a lot of videos that you'll watch, and I'll have quizzes for uh, each sort of section that we cover, and I'll get to that once we get to the schedule and the assignments. Um, and I think the discussion component is also a big part of getting some of those applications in real life implications of microbiology a little bit more cemented and digestible since we don't have that actual access to a lab here. Um, so in terms of the assignments that I've alluded to, you'll have exams, study guides, lab quizzes, and discussion board assignments. Now, the exams are sort of what you might expect. Now, I don't use any of the proctoring software. Um, Honestly, there's just been a lot of issues with people being able to um, overcome a lot of the checks that exist in that proctoring software. People are still able to cheat with what seems like relative ease. So I kind of assume that um, if there's an intent to sort of uh, get around certain systems, people will do it. And I want to make sure that you sort of learn the major concepts of microbiology. So I don't really design my tests to be very focused on minor details, things that you can just look up online. I want to really probe your understanding of the big ideas of microbiology, which I think are pretty easy to understand once you sort of step back a bit and just appreciate the larger things and how they may even mirror your own biology, your own basic needs as a human. There's not a lot of difference there. I mean, life has a lot of the basic genetically imposed instructions, and hopefully you can sort of relate those things, to a microbial setting. Um, and so I believe that the exams should also serve as an additional opportunity to sort of reinforce the lessons. So my format for exams is just it's done through Blackboard. Um, it's timed, but I feel like it's a pretty generous amount of time given how long the exam is. And I provide study guides that are just these guided questions that as you read through the chapter, you answer, and all the information from those study guides is what it's tested on the actual exams. So the study guides, which we'll go through in a bit here, include questions that will help um, focus your reading as you get through the chapters here. And once you complete that, you submit it as largely as a participation grade, so I can see that you're, participating and going through the material. And then those notes will serve as material that you can have with you, you can use as you complete the exams online through Blackboard. So I like to think of that incentivizes you to take as detailed and strong notes as you can, since that'll be your, most immediate resource to complete the exams on Blackboard. Um, and that's pretty much what we used to cover, or what I used to cover the lecture material, so the textbook material. Now, the lab quizzes are also pretty straightforward. It's like I mentioned, primarily videos and some interactive activities. I want you to sort of pay attention to the videos, the interactive activities, so I don't have lab reports or things that I feel like sort of aren't that great for this setting. Um, so the way I get a grade for how well you're able to actually participate, engage with the lab material is by requiring that you complete a quiz also through Blackboard. Um, and it's not a very long quiz. It's primarily multiple choice, fill in the blank. I don't think there's any essay questions or anything. So that's a pretty straightforward way of just making sure that you're grasping the main concepts there. But I really want you to sort of not worry too much about the testing of the lab material and just sit with it, digest it, register the actual information, and hopefully that will facilitate connections with the lecture material, which again will serve you for the exams. So that's sort of my philosophy with teaching is I don't want to overwhelm with assignments. I want you to sort of focus on learning, and I want to make sure that the assignments I do require reinforce the learning in both the lecture and lab materials here. So finally, to provide some of that interaction that's that you're missing from not having a face-to-face section are these discussion board assignments, and that's where I will post some relevant microbiological article or video and require that you write, I believe it's like 200 or 300 words relating to the post and reply to two other students' own responses to this prompt. And I'll show a little bit more of that in a bit here. And I'll also participate there to sort of get some idea of how you're thinking about microbiology, how you're applying it to maybe something that is not covered in the lecture material and more focused on real life health issues. And that really gives me a good idea of where you're at. Also helps me discern if, you don't know what you're talking about in the discussion board, but your grades are all good, then I can sort of start to infer that, maybe the mastery that I'm looking for isn't really there. And what I'm seeing is just a result of getting around certain not loopholes, but weaknesses in this sort of online format. Again, I feel you're doing yourself a disservice if you're just using ChatGPT to answer these questions, which will segue nicely to my AI policy statement here. But to summarize, it's these AI large language models are sort of here. I use them quite a bit. They're fairly limited though when it comes to more complex or large assemblies of accurate information. So while it's great for the most part for asking individual questions, um, once you start requiring sort of more compounded responses from AI, the flaws become pretty clear. And if that trickles down to what you're delivering on your exams or your discussion board assignments, then it will make for a weaker product that won't be graded as highly. So, learn to use AI well, understand its limitations. Um, I view it more as a tool to sort of facilitate things than to generate or answer things. Um, and I realize that it's ubiquitous. There's all these different AI platforms now. Um, and I don't want you to not use them. I don't want you to feel like you're going against the policies of this class if you use AI for your assignments. But just realize that it may sort of be to your own detriment if you're not um, yourself learning these large, you know, primary microbiology concepts, and you're just sort of outsourcing your intellect to AI. And while that may help you get a good grade in this course, it may make not just your academic career, but if you plan to go into an area that will use biology, say nursing, dental hygiene, then you're also going to do yourself a disservice, but not really having the immediate knowledge base you might need or inherent knowledge base you would need to be successful in this career. So um, use it as a tool, as a fancier Google search. But my personal opinion is that if you lean too much on it, you'll sort of be doing yourself for academic and career pursuits a bit of a disservice there. So that's my AI spiel. Just want to make sure that, yeah, again, you have the syllabus at your disposal, but the main breakdown here is that 50% of your grades come from these exams. There's four, so I sort of break up the schedule in four major sections as they relate to each exam. So there's also only four deadlines, which we'll cover here in a bit. And the exams are 50% of your total grade. There is an optional final, so if for whatever reason you miss an exam, you miss a due date, or you do really poorly on an exam, there's an optional all multiple choice exam that you can take to make up for that grade. Um, Now, the study guides, which are a big tool for you to sort of navigate through the material and have a resource to use for the exams, those are worth 10%, which may not seem like much, but again, I feel like success in this class is predicated on successful or completion of these study guides. Um, so it's only 10% of total grade. I think it has a big impact on how well you do in the other assignments. So the lab quizzes are 25%. Again, there's only four of them. They cover a variety of labs, so they're not um, super focused. They cover multiple things, and you'll see that as we go through the semester. Um, but they're not anything too overwhelming. It's largely multiple choice, matching, that sort of thing. Um, and then these discussion board assignments, I grade primarily on participation and completion. I'm not gonna fact check, everything that you post on these things. I will comment on them. But again, that's our opportunity to sort of, I don't want to say force interaction, but build in a defined place to interact, um, and sort of start involving the outside applications of microbiology into the classroom. Um, so yeah, we'll get into that in a bit here once we get to the actual Blackboard site. So just some formalities here. The drop date or last date to withdraw before we take attendance pretty much is February 4th. The final withdrawal date to still get a W and not a failing grade or anything is April 27th. So keep those dates in mind. I assume they're the same for all your other classes. Skipping around a bit, a lot of this is just boilerplate stuff. Uh, yeah. So the main uh compass for the course here is the schedule. I've got it listed as tentative, but it should be pretty set in stone. But if there are like certain, natural disasters or any sort of extenuating circumstances, I may need to modify certain deadlines or cut down or add material. But I think, barring any sort of uh, extenuating circumstance, this should be a pretty accurate schedule here. So as you can see, I've got it laid out week by week with spring break labeled there sort of as the halfway point. Um, I've got the chapters that you should be reading, and this is my own suggested cadence for how to pace yourself and read these things. Um, the labs will be covered and when everything will be due. So just to sort of show you the utility of this, well, what does one go wrong? So in this items due section, you'll have uh, your exam, the relevant study guides, the lab quiz, and the discussion board. And these will all be due by 11:59 p.m. or end of day on this last date here. So on February 15th will be your first due date, and that'll cover the exam that relates to these chapters, the study guides that cover the material, and the quiz for these different labs, as well as the discussion board assignment. So that's the layout here. That's how you sort of use this schedule to know when things will be due, maybe what you should be reading. And again, you can refer to this yourself. So with that, I'll go back to the page here. And as I mentioned, I think we went to the link here for the textbook, virtual office hours, virtual office hours will take you to the Zoom. There is a waiting room enabled, so if I don't admit you immediately, it's because I may be with another student. Um, but other than that, it should be pretty easy to sort of reach me. I don't think I mentioned it, but the hours I laid out for this course are Thursdays, 9:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's when you can just log into those that link, that Zoom meeting, and I'll be there. Uh, and Fridays, 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. I just realized I missed the little A there. Um, and any other time that may be convenient to you, we can schedule some time, or you can email me. I find a lot of things can be resolved through email. So, please feel empowered to reach out and schedule some time or ask me whatever questions relate to the course, as much as you need to. I do want to make up for some of what you may be missing in that traditional face-to-face environment. But in terms of the assignments here, so you've got your textbook, you've got office hours to conference in if you need to. Um, yeah, so this is my instructor view. So some of these assignments I haven't enabled for y'all to see yet. Um, but I probably will soon just because I don't like people moving too far ahead on their own. Just makes it a little hard for me to sort of stay on top of things. So I like to sort of sync things up a bit more. So right now you should be able to see the first three study guides. I'll click on one here as an example. Now these are just Word documents that you can just download, complete on Word yourself or whatever word processing program you have. If it's easy for you, you can also just print them out, fill out the notes by hand, and then upload that. But you've got these three study guides that cover the chapters, 1, 2, 3. And then once you're ready to submit, you click on this Exam 1 Study Guides submission portal. And it's already got some submissions. Let's see. Yeah, so my view is a little bit different, but it is sort of clear um, how to actually submit your you know what, let me go to the student preview. I want to make sure that's accurate here. So for your study guides, you would go to your Exam 1 Study Guides submission portal. All right, so to actually submit, you can attach the file. Um, it would just pull it up from your browser. You can copy and paste it here, and then just hit submit whenever you're ready. Um, you can submit all your study guides in that one portal, or you can submit separate ones, whatever's easier for you. And again, if you're having any issues, just let me know. Any technical issues as well. Um, Labs here, I've got the first set of labs visible to you all, and the lab quiz. Just click on the lab quiz to show you what the format may look like. Start attempt. So you can see it's just primarily multiple choice questions. Um, some of them have images. Again, if you have any issues seeing some of these images, or you feel like there's something glitchy about the exam, quiz, assignment, let me know and I can correct and give you, an additional attempt or something there. While we're speaking of assignments, one thing I didn't, I think, go over that's on the syllabus is that, we're not supposed to take late assignments, but my policy, just to make sure um, you feel like you can weather the semester a bit more, is that I will accept any late assignments um, at any point in the semester. It'll just be 70% of whatever grade you receive. So you only get 70% credit for it, which again, better than a zero. And that way, if things come up or you fall behind a little bit, again, I would hope you reach out to me and we can sort of approach how to get you back on track. I like to think I'm pretty flexible, so don't ever feel like, don't be scared to ask for any sort of leniency or flexibility. I feel like there's always solutions to keep you um, on top of your progression in class here. Um, so the only thing I don't accept late, unless there's very specific extenuating circumstances on a one-on-one basis, would be exams. But again, I sort of have that covered by having that optional final available to you. Um, if you do miss an exam, that'd be the easiest way to sort of make up those grades there. So yeah, these labs are broken down in folders, with the actual contents of them visible once you open up the folders there. So you'd want to go through all these different links, read everything, watch everything, complete every activity, and then you'll be ready to take the lab quiz there. And as you saw, it's not a super large lab quiz or anything here. Now, for exams, exam one's already available. I'll take a brief look here. You get 60 minutes. Um, Very similar format to, any sort of Blackboard testing utility here. We've got lots of multiple choice here, and then we've got some matching and some essay questions, which is where I really get to sort of see how well you're grasping certain things. Also, a good opportunity to see if you're using it becomes really obvious if you're using if you're just copy and pasting from ChatGPT. Um, Beyond the built-in tools, it's also just after doing this enough years now, since LLMs, ChatGPT came on the scene, I think most instructors develop a pretty good eye for like, oh, this might not fit the rest of their voice or language in other assignments. Um, but yeah, that covers the exams. The final assignments type you'll have here are these discussions, which I've got the first one posted here. Again, all your assignments will be due February 15th, your first, tranche of assignments. So if you've got the discussion up, you click on this first one. Actually, talking about a very, in the grand scheme of things, it may not seem, like it's that big of a deal with so many other things going on within healthcare, within microbiology even. But the overall crisis of being able to develop antibiotics for all the emerging pathogens is still a very hot topic. And while the specific video I reference here that you should watch um, is from, I think, like 10 years ago or something, it's still extremely relevant. Things have gotten a little bit better. There's a little bit more motion with developing um, better therapies for some of these nightmare bacteria. But again, you'll watch this. I provided my own sort of post that you can use as something to reply to, maybe to shape your own response around. So to complete these assignments, you would need to write at least, what is it, 200 words um, that match the prompt. In this case, your thoughts on how best this crisis can be addressed. Um, and to get the full credit, you'll also need to post or reply to two other students' posts. So the more people start responding initially, the easier that becomes. But again, I provided my own post here to sort of nucleate the discussion there. Um, but as always, if you have any questions, which I suspect y'all might, about actually completing the assignment, reach out, email, office hours. And with that said, that's sort of the section specific to my course. There are some sections that I think are all on all the Blackboard pages, online tutoring resources, college policies and student support services, course evaluation. Those are all really good resources to things that relate, I think, more largely to ACC, to your specific experience. So feel free to explore those as well. But other than that, I think that's a pretty good summation of where to start. Um, you have everything you need for this first chunk of assignments that will be due February 15th. So please let me know if there's any issues with accessing the book or any glitches that come up with the documents. Since the sooner I can correct those, the more benefit it'll have for any other students going through similar things. Um, but yeah, that is the course. Um, again, go over the syllabus. Uh, oh, that's not right. Uh, use the office hours, email, whatever means I want you to feel empowered to sort of tackle the material, get through the course. If ever you're struggling, with anything related to the course, if you need any flexibility, please do not be shy to reach out. And with that said, we can go ahead and or I'll go ahead and the recording here. Um, and again, reach out if you need anything. I'll be here. And good luck with your semester.